So with the ever-growing concerns of privacy, Apple decided to push for iOS 14.5 and 14.6 about 2 weeks ago now, causing mass hysteria in the Facebook advertising communities, as well as media buyers running around not knowing what's going on or not knowing what to do because their conversions are starting to fall off, and quoting that Facebook is dead. This may sound like a huge problem, but no need to panic, because today I'll be sharing with you 5 essential things that you need to do in order to go ahead and push through this speed bump that is iOS 14.5 and 14.6 in advertising. What's up guys, Nikita here from aspectagency.com, and let's go ahead and get into the video. So one of the first things that you want to go ahead and do is actually set up Conversion API on your Facebook Pixel. Now, everyone knows that the Facebook Pixel is basically the make or break feature on Facebook, but here you would actually want to have it, people used to just throw the Pixel code on the header and not worry about it. Can't do that anymore. You actually have to take care of the Pixel and set up Conversion API either through a Shopify plugin, which is very easy to do, or you would have to go ahead and manually install it through Google Tag Manager and set up the events there. Both of them are relatively simple, with the Google Tag Manager being slightly more annoying than normal, because there you actually have to, copy the code in and do a few other things and whatnot. I'm not going to go ahead and go into the details of how to do that in this video because it'll just drag on the video for too long, but I'll go ahead and link a very useful tutorial that I found and I personally use with one of my clients down in the description. So if you want to check that out and set up for your own Pixel, go ahead and do that below. Aside from getting your Conversion API installed and sort of getting server-side tracking set up, you'd want to go ahead and set up Aggregate Events Manager. Now, what Aggregate Events Manager does is it helps Facebook prioritize which specific events you want to look, or which specific events they want to look for when it comes down to tracking. So if you want to prioritize add to carts over purchases, you can do that in the Aggregate Events Manager. I personally prioritize mine in my agency at purchase, initiate checkout, add to cart, view content, search, payment info, received, lead. Actually, lead is above search. Lead if we have that installed, and then any other events that the store maybe has particularly set up for their own like tracking. So if there's any other custom events there. And the cool thing is, once you get those set up, Facebook will help basically measure and track and attribute certain purchases through to Facebook. Here you'll just basically, Facebook will be able to bypass the cookie blocking that the iOS does through server-side tracking, and that's essentially what Conversion API does. So here, you have to install it because that's basically the future of Facebook. Moving on to point number 2, and this is going back to basics. Now, what do I mean by going back to basics? Well, tracking is starting to plummet, and it's very hard to attribute specific purchases to Facebook. So you don't know whether you should spend more money on the platform or spend less money on the platform. So it's getting a lot harder to track that information. Now the thing is, people have been advertising for hundreds, if not thousands of years without any pixels. People have been doing fine, and if anything, they've been successful at selling without this pixel. So it's not that it won't help you, it definitely will. Having that tracking attribution, if anything, is very useful on one of the most, if not the most powerful social network advertising tools in the world right now. The pixel is just there as like an addition. So there's definitely going to be other ways to track, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the video. But going back to the basics is very important, and there's definitely 3 things that you'd want to look out for when going back to the basics, and actually having these things locked down is one of the most crucial things that people forget to do when they start advertising. Is number 1, having a good product. While this is very obvious, having a unique selling point and having a unique product is crucial to the success of you in the market. Now, I don't want to say any names or call anyone out, but I've been seeing too many toothbrush or razors, eraser companies basically advertising on Facebook or trying to start up their own D2C consumer brand because they think they're unique, even though it's just another razor or it's just another bamboo toothbrush. That's not a unique selling point. Having a USP is crucial if you want to differentiate yourself in the market, especially as how saturated it's getting and how saturated it will get in the next decade. Number 2, having concrete messaging set up. This is crucial because this is how people actually perceive your brand before they buy it. And having your messaging set up and people actually understanding why you're selling that product and what's the purpose behind you selling that product actually help people buy into your brand. It's like, why do people buy Teslas? Well, it's not because they're the biggest electric manufacturer in the world. It's because they have a cause behind having those electric cars being built, and that's to be the most green and sustainable company in the world. And they've also backed that up by not having any or not making any internal combustion engine cars. So that's the why. And to sort of help you define your messaging and helping define your why, I would highly recommend checking out Simon Sinek's video of The Power of Why, or Starting with Why. I believe it's one of those two. And there he goes into depth of why certain companies do certain things, and the why is the complete backbone of that company, and the how and the what are the actual products that help solve the why. So that's how you should be thinking about your messaging. Number 3 is knowing your target audience. And this is crucial because, I went over this last week in my previous video, as well as my previous week's article on aspectagency.com, where we went over how to identify your target audience, how to know where they live, and how to, target them on Facebook. But, that's just Facebook. Here we want to go ahead and know our target audience overall, because Facebook is just a scaling tool when it comes down to your e-commerce store. So here, when targeting your target, or when finding your target audience and knowing your target audience, this is where it's crucial to understand where they're coming from, what they do, and basically the buying behaviors of that target customer, and how that messaging will actually tie in to target that customer. So having those 3 things locked down are very crucial, and those are the 3 things that most people throughout history have done right and have scaled like significantly to millions and billions of dollars with just a proper business. Third essential thing that I would highly recommend you to implement here is advertising only one offer. Now, what do I mean by this? I like to use the charcuterie board as an example. If you don't know what a charcuterie board is, it's one of those wooden boards with a bunch of like smoked meats, cheeses, grapes, crackers, and dip, and sometimes other fruits and other savory things. So what the charcuterie board is basically an offer. Now, if you were to break down that offer, you would get individual things, like you get smoked meats, and then you get cheeses, and then you get grapes, and then you get sauces and dip and other things. Those are individual products that you have on your Shopify store, or not Shopify, well, just any store like WooCommerce, whatever you use. Those are the individual products that you have set up. And you're trying to sell each of those individual products. Now the thing is, going back to my previous point, you don't have a unique selling point here. You're trying to sell all these different products to people, that may have seen hundreds, if not thousands of other ads for that exact same product. Like for example, if you're trying to sell organic diapers, there is a very competitive market out there already for diapers itself. So trying to differentiate yourself with an offer for your organic diapers is definitely going to be difficult. So this is where having an offer comes in, and combining the products that you have together and selling them as a unique selling point. Like for example, all the different products of a charcuterie board can all be bought at the local Whole Foods right across my street. I can make a charcuterie board myself, but the unique selling point behind a charcuterie board, it saves time, it's already pre-made, and it's basically already, it looks better than what I would have made. So those are a no-brainer for me to go ahead and buy one online from a store, or something that's already pre-made, versus trying to buy all those individual ingredients, and those people that are making those ingredients having to compete with thousands of other people. So here is where creating a unique offer helps you differentiate between your market. And it actually helps you scale even further, because here you can, quickly iterate the messaging, the copy, the ads that are actually working, the landing pages that are working specifically behind that offer. So that's why I highly recommend advertising only one offer when it comes down to Facebook. Number 4 is, diversifying into other mediums and other traffic sources. Now, while Facebook is not the only top dog that's getting hit by the iOS update, Snapchat, TikTok, Google Ads, eventually Pinterest, and other native platforms are definitely getting hit by all of these, all of the tracking, or all the loss of tracking, basically. So why would I recommend diversifying your traffic into other mediums? Well, the reason is, like, even though your product is doing really well on Facebook, or was doing historically well on Facebook, you can still have great success on other platforms. And sometimes some of these other platforms aren't getting hit as hard as Facebook, because right now Apple is just trying to make an example out of Facebook because of what's going on and how they're very anti-privacy. Diversifying into those different paid traffic mediums is great, but there's also one traffic medium that people commonly overlook and should be more solidified in e-commerce stores, and that's increasing your SEO presence and search engine optimization. Now, it sounds very boring, and sometimes it is very boring because it takes a long time and you have to do all these crazy things to your website. Well, not crazy, but you have to do a lot of manual work on the website to make sure that you're manipulating Google's algorithm to get higher. It sounds boring, but trust me, it is one of the most evergreen things you can do for your product, because once your website is like on rank 5 for a specific high traffic specific keyword, then most likely it's very hard for it to go down, and that's where the evergreen sales start to come in, because people are just knowing about your brand by search or by intent-based search queries. Increasing your SEO presence is crucial, and I highly recommend putting more focus on it, because like I said, it takes a long time to ramp up SEO, and usually you don't see results within 6 to 8 months of starting an SEO campaign. So now lastly, this is one of the points where when people are talking about the new iOS 14.5 and 14.6 update, this is the first thing they bring up, and that is setting up attribution software like Hyros, Wicked Reports, and Segment. Now, these tools have their place in the market, and I highly recommend implementing these tools when you're at the right stage in your store. Now, if you're not spending more than $1,500 a day on Facebook ads, then it does not make sense for you to implement these things. If you're not spending that much money, you should be working on all the 4 things above that I mentioned to you, to work on your store, to work on your messaging, your product, and your ideal customer before implementing these things, because while they help significantly, they also, you need a lot of data coming into these tools. And what these tools do essentially is they take all the data that's coming into your store. They mark it as first-party data, meaning they record the people's emails, their phone numbers, their purchase history, all that, and they feed it back into Facebook, or at least that's what Hyros does. They feed it back into the Facebook Pixel, and they help the Facebook Pixel pick up those purchases that have been missed by the Facebook attribution software that is essentially the Pixel. These are very important, and this is the last step of all the things that you should be doing in your store to increase your tracking, as well as increase sales overall through the iOS 14.5 situation. So would highly recommend getting that implemented only when you're at the right stage. Now, with that being said, are you a store owner and do you want to add an extra $50,000 to $150,000 MRR to your store? Well, let's go ahead and hop on a scaling initiative call with me, and we'll get to know each other a little bit better, and we can see what we can do to help your store scale. And that's pretty much it for the video. If you like the video, hit the like button down below. If you have any questions, or if you want me to cover any other topics within Facebook ads, feel free to comment down below as well. I read all your comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.